Well, hello, fellow investors and traders. I'm LA Little, and this is your daily NeoTA wrap, where we take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective each time, asking ourselves what happened today and what does it tell us about the coming ones. I do this show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday. It's broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time. It's archived on YouTube. It's on the channel, LA Little. If you haven't subscribed, and you want to keep a pulse on what's happening in these markets, then just reach up there in the right hand corner, subscribe. It's easy, it's fast, and it doesn't cost you a thing. What happened today in these markets? Well, let's take a look here at the ending numbers. We had bonds up, everything else down, dollar included, although slightly. We had gold down about $7-8, silver the same, 3% on the silver. Oil down almost 2.5. It was down 3.5 at one point. Oil tried to reverse around. We'll take a look at that chart in a bit. Overseas, slightly down. Europe was down a bit more, 0.5%, 1% in CACs. And then here, we were down quite a bit, but actually came rallying back towards the end of the day to close down slightly. If we take a look at the charts themselves, what you're going to find, of course, is another low volume rally back up, a little hammer reversal type situation. So essentially, you go into the bottom of these two bars, which is kind of the top of the high volume options expiration bar. That top is 20.40.81. You got down to 20.44. So as you come back there, of course, you have no volume. You flip it around and you close it back up almost at the highs. Down on the day, but still, given the way this thing was down about 1% almost, pretty good recovery towards the end of the day. And if you look at it closely, one could argue that they're putting in an ABCD type structure to take it up and over this swing point high and drive it up. That's this one, and drive it up towards these other two into the new year. So ABCD structure potentially in place. You've got the pullback. You've got everything happening here you wanted. And now it's just a question of, can you do it? If we move over to the NASDAQ, you've got the same sort of pattern set up here. And I didn't show it on the S&P 500, but essentially you've got nested ABCD structures potentially setting up. So you have the ABCD structure here that would take this up towards the highs. And then inside that, you've got a little ABCD structure that's trying to form here to take this up as well. Get it up, test the highs, end it near the highs of the year. That's the setup. NASDAQ, S&P, NDX, all of them the same. If we move over to the Russell and take a look at it, on the Russell, you actually had the worst selling today. Russell was down a good percent plus. Now the Russell came down, tried to test into the two bars below or back. That was this low on the 23rd. But really, the test was into this breakdown bar. If you remember, the breakdown bar was the bar we were watching on the way back up to say, okay, can you get over that? And so that was this price point here. You got over it there, you got over it and stayed over it here. And then today you came back to test it. That top 1146.23, you go into it, you close it up and over it, so you hold it. That looks like it's going to reverse and also try to head higher. And if it heads higher, potentially you're going to get that ABCD structure here, just as we saw on the other charts. You just had a little ABCD structure complete. That was this one. That one's done, right? Now you get the little pullback off of this one to try to set up the next move to take it higher. So Russell is actually set up pretty well to try to make a run here into the end of the year. If we look elsewhere, the drivers continue to be the currency markets. And last night we were talking about these currency markets and that they were set up to try to push a little bit higher. Just as we were looking at the ABCD structures elsewhere, you got a small ABCD structure setting up here to try to take this up to test into these two highs. It does look like it's going to stretch up there on the FXE, and that of course puts some pressure on the dollar, which should help commodities, but today did not. Which brings us to the commodity space. Let's look at the oil market. I'm going to use the OIL, which is a proxy ETF. And what I wanted to show you here is this got a good spike up on the 23rd. Bottom of that spike was 631. You came into it, back under it, over it, less volume. This appears as if it is also setting up an ABCD structure to bounce higher, and that's on the oil market itself. And that's going to be, I don't know if that's going to be a surprise, but that's certainly going to push these markets if it gets going, because we saw some huge short covering off on this spike last week. The big bar here is going to be this area. That ABCD structure should take it right into that area. That looks to be where it's heading. That price point, 696. You're trading tonight at 635. So we're talking about 60 cents. We're talking about 10% potentially on that move. That's going to be a big move if it takes place. That's the commodity space, the big move potentially in the commodity space. Looking elsewhere, these did not fare well today. Copper market pulled back. The gold market also pulled back, and silver, as we showed at the top of the show. But these were just, kind of drifting back in. We'll see if they can flip around and get a little bit of pressure to the upside. But these markets, that's the gold market. Here's the GDX. And if you pull these back and put them on a long-term basis, these stocks have been decimated. The run from the highs to the lows have been huge, and they have been all year long. And so when you're looking at these markets, right, you're just seeing, time after time again, they get sold. And when that's going to change, that's anybody's guess. But right now, they certainly aren't the place to be. As a matter of fact, if you look at some of the statistics out this year, there was no place to be this year. Everything performed flat to down, and the commodity space in general was heavily to the downside. So tomorrow, if we think about what's set up, you got 3 days to go. The setup is to go higher, and that setup into the end of the year, the continuation of the Santa Claus rally, is set up to do that tomorrow. The real question is, will you get a little participation out of Europe? In other words, where that euro just kind of hold flat, let Europe push higher. If they do, we'll see a gap up in the morning, and then they'll try to run them off that gap up and get over that B point on that ABCD higher. That's it for tonight. Remember, shows, no show on Thursday, potentially a show on Wednesday, most likely will, certainly a show tomorrow. I'll see you then. Have a great one, a safe one. I'll talk to you next time. Good night.